So we broke the story here at the MeidasTouch Network about Donald Trump's scam in Detroit, where he rented out a black church and then told the media he was giving this important roundtable to the black community in Detroit, which he said showed his support amongst the black community of Detroit. And as we exposed and others exposed as well, the church itself, which has been embroiled in litigation with the pastor. It's a very controversial church, embroiled in massive amounts of litigation. But in any event, it was pretty much 90% white people at the event. There were black people on the stage, but it was just a scam. But the media runs with it. Look, Donald Trump got the headlines that he wanted. And what I want to show you is what the plan is. I want to decode his strategy. I want to show you what the corporate media is doing so you can be aware of the plan and then help educate family members, friends, neighbors, and others about what's going on. And I'm not going to do it with hyperbole. I'm just going to show you the receipts. So if you take a look at the headlines that Donald Trump got, just take a look at it. CBS says, Trump hosts roundtable at Detroit church. Says Biden has been the worst president for black people. Actually, all of the metrics show that President Biden has actually achieved better results for the black community in terms of job opportunities, in terms of helping HBCUs, in terms of you name it. I mean, every stat. And President Biden's appointments to the federal judiciary, President Biden's appointments within his administration compared to absolutely none of that taking place was in Trump's administration. But that's the CBS headline. And people think, hey, CBS is a credible source. That's the headline from CBS. Politico says Trump rallies MAGA base, courts black voters in Detroit. The New York Times says Trump in pitch to black voters in Detroit casts Biden as anti-black. It's your New York Times headline. Today.com, Trump courts black voters at church in Detroit. Trump rallies MAGA base, courts black voters in Detroit. AP, Trump blasts immigrants for taking jobs as he courts voters at a black church MAGA event in Detroit. You know, and these stories don't mention the facts. I mean, think about just how utterly offensive and despicable it is. Also, you have the white congregants wearing hats and I think just disrespecting the place of worship. Also, chanting Trump's name in a place of worship. The media doesn't cover that. But this is what he does all the time, and that's why collectively, together, we have to continue this rapid response. And so he does this all the time, even with things like giving pizza to firemen, fire department, where he shows up with like fake pizza. And then he gets the photo op that he wants, and you'll just see that he's doing it for the photo op. And so here's just another example of we exposed. And you may say, well, this is a small one. No, this is everything he does is like this. It is a photo op for the press to push out. Here, this is when we exposed Donald Trump like faking giving pizza to a fire department in New York to get that photo op. Play this clip.
Yesterday, Donald Trump staged another scam pretending to deliver pizzas to firefighters in New York. It turns out he actually re-delivered already delivered pizzas to the fire department. So you see at 5:34 p.m., 2 pizzas arrive. At 5:41 p.m., you see 6 more pizzas arrive. At 5:54 p.m., you see a staffer set aside 2 pizzas. Then at 5:57 p.m., you see a staffer walk 2 pizzas to Trump as Donald Trump arrives to the location. At 5:58 p.m., Donald Trump arrives to the location and you see him accept the pizzas from the staffer and then re-deliver them to the firefighters. And you can see the way Donald Trump is even handling these pizzas, that if there is anything even in these boxes, these pizzas are completely destroyed. The cheese is everywhere. It's a total mess. Then at 6:01 p.m., you see Donald Trump inspecting the pizzas. At 6:10 p.m., Trump leaves the cold pizza there and leaves the photo op. Another successful scam.
Of course, we also broke the news here at the MeidasTouch Network about Donald Trump's Chick-fil-A visit in Atlanta, which Donald Trump pushed out to the media as it showed his support amongst black voters, because when he showed up at a Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, He got hugged by a black lady, and they said that shows that he has all this support amongst the black community. And then, she made a comment like, "We're here for you. The media doesn't want to cover it, Donald, but we're here for you." The media does cover that. They cover the scam. They cover all of the fraud that takes place. Just take a look at the Chick-fil-A headlines from Axios. Trump orders 30 milkshakes and chicken at Atlanta's Vine City Chick-fil-A. Fox, Trump visits Atlanta Chick-fil-A, buys customer chicken and shakes. WSB-TV, former President Donald Trump visits Chick-fil-A during fundraising stop in Atlanta. Newsweek, Donald Trump's interaction with black women in Chick-fil-A goes viral. Maybe you want to investigate who she is. Her name is Michaela Montgomery. She goes from event to event with Donald Trump to get these headlines, and we've covered it here. She literally works for the Republican Party. She's a MAGA operative. She works for Charlie Kirk. She worked for Candace Owens. Charlie Kirk believes that there shouldn't be black pilots, and he wants to abolish MLK Day. She works for that organization, and she goes from event to event and does this. That should be the headline. That should be what the media is calling out. We've discussed all of these scams. Remember when Donald Trump left court and said, "I'm going to a bodega. Join me at the bodega." Remember he said that? Here, play this clip.
Going to a bodega. You know about that, right?
Okay, so then he says he's going to a bodega. And in fact, in New York City, and in fact, he's surrounded by the New York Young Republican Club of New York. And you're able to take a look at the New York Young Republican Club photo. You compare it to the people who are at this bodega, who are chanting Trump's name, who are being photographed by the media. And then Trump gets the headline that he's looking for there, and that was the bodega stunt that he pulled. Remember, Donald Trump went to Wisconsin when he was giving a speech there. He brought on stage a Milwaukee business owner. Her name is Shayna Gray. And Trump told this just false story. He said, under the Trump administration, Shayna Gray, black woman's business, was crushing it. She was doing so good. And then under the Biden administration, she is now suffering, and we need to do more for people like Shayna Gray. And Shayna Gray went up and she gave a speech, and she says, one of the things about my business is when these immigrants come here who are on government assistance and they are using government assistance, I am so offended by that in my shop. That's what she said. Well, it turns out she didn't have a business when Trump was in office. She opened up her vegan restaurant in 2023. Her small business was first able to open up based on the policies of President Biden. She had previously declared bankruptcy multiple times. She was on government assistance. She was not thriving when Trump was in office. And it's just yet another example of that. Remember, Donald Trump said he was meeting with workers, union workers in Michigan. He does this all the time. And then he rented out a non-union shop the same way he rented out the black church and basically filled it with actors, right? I mean, but what else should we call them? Like basically paid actors or actors. He has people show up to a non-union shop holding signs pretending to be union workers, saying union workers for Trump. He paid $25,000 to stage that stunt at a non-union shop in Michigan. Then he went around the country and talked about this when I met with the union workers, and corporate media posts Donald Trump's meeting with the union workers. He's meeting with the union workers. He did the same thing in New York. He said before one of his days of trial, he was meeting with union workers there. And then the media pushed out, and he helped push out the story, Trump's meeting with black union workers. That was part of the story. Well, it turns out that the union worker who's highlighted, first off, identifies as an Indian American and not black, and works for George Santos and is a MAGA Republican operative. and that there were all these other MAGA Republican operatives that wore a hat saying, I'm an American worker, I'm a black union worker, American workers for Trump. I mean, and again, this is not accurate. So you have all of that. The media buys these stories and they publish these stories. They run with these stories. And then they do the other thing that I should mention. All of the crowd size stuff, just making up crowd sizes over and over again. Saying that Wildwood, New Jersey, that there was 80,000, then it was 100,000, then 107,000, then like 120,000, just making up numbers. Then he has the MAGA mayor of Wildwood say that that's what the numbers are. Totally false. And we know that because if you just read the stuff about the venue, we know that the venue didn't hold more than 20,000 people and it was less than half full. So very easy to debunk, but even the Associated Press, Reuters, and all of them went with 80,000, 100,000. They ran with the headline that Trump fed them that was obviously false. And they created this appearance, whoa, these are massive crowds. It's not. In the Bronx, there was less than 3,000 people. They said 25,000 people. It was less than 3,000 people. And to me, the big headline there is Trump brought on stage with him two individuals. This is part of Donald Trump courting the black vote. He brought on two individuals, someone named Chef G and Sleepy Hollow, who were just indicted in a 140-count indictment for murder and attempted murder, where it's alleged that they are leaders of the Crips, of the gang that terrorized New York. And then Trump asked them about their grill and their teeth. So he lies all about the crowd sizes over and over again. Then his campaign pushes that and the media runs with that number. So you have all of that taking place. But then the corporate media does another thing. And one of the reasons they like Trump so much, the corporate media, is one, they think he makes them money. And they think that they should get the clickbait headlines by promoting Donald Trump. And also Trump packages these stories for them. It makes their life easy. Here, just run with what we're saying and we'll give you the access and we'll create these stunts for you to fill your content roster. And also, let's face it, corporate media, obviously you have right-wing propaganda media, which has an agenda to hoist up an authoritarian regime. But then corporate media is run by billionaires also. So they have an agenda where they're willing to sacrifice our democracy for their view that they could pay less taxes, which I say that's their view because the economy struggles a lot under Republican administrations we've seen in the past. But then the media does something else. And they affirmatively just lie. And we know that, but going after President Biden. So they create this strong man, weak man paradigm that they push out and flood the airwaves and flood the newspapers with. It's all part of the scheme. So you have the following headlines. New York Post, Joe Bribin. FBI has secret file alleging that then Veep Biden took money from foreign national whistleblower, they said. And they say whistleblower so they can try to avoid defamation. Hey, we're just reporting. That was proven to be a spy from Russia and a spy from China who were trying to destroy America, who were giving false information, saying that there were recordings and 17 audio recordings of Biden that were found. All lies. All lies. And they give it to some MAGA Republican Congress members, the same ones who wear the long red ties to Donald Trump's criminal trial, and they have Donald Trump's face on their ties, like just weird stuff. And then they bring it to the Post, and the Post says Joe Bribin, he's taking bribes. And this is what they don't do. They don't do retractions, just lies, and this is what the people see. Here's the one they ran recently. President Biden had a great appearance at the G7 summit in Italy. What President Biden's been able to do to unite the international community to support Ukraine. There's real momentum behind Ukraine right now, pushing back Russia's unlawful invasion. Some real incredible stuff that President Biden's been able. More members have joined NATO. I mean, real, like unprecedented, groundbreaking stuff. But that's a tough narrative for the corporate media and right-wing propaganda media that wants to just destroy President Biden. They want their Kim Jong-un. They want their wannabe authoritarian. So there used to be a time in our country where we would all have an objective reality and rally behind our commander in chief and rally behind our troops. But that's not what it is anymore. It's everything is how do we go after Biden? How do we put billions and billions of dollars to go after him? So the New York Post headline was Meander in Chief. Biden embarrasses U.S. with confused wanderings at World Conference. By the way, just false, just pure disinformation, 100% disinformation. President Biden was speaking with a skydiver who they cut off from the frame to make it look like President Biden is speaking to himself. It wasn't embarrassing at all. President Biden represented the country well. What's embarrassing is here, take a look at this photo of Donald Trump and the president of France, and take a look at President Biden and Macron. One of those is embarrassing and one of those isn't. And President Biden representing the country, great. Here's the one from this past weekend from the New York Post. Biden appears to freeze up, has to be let off stage by Obama at Mega Bucks LA fundraiser. I was at that event. I mean, it's just 100% false. Former President Obama, as a sign of endearment to President Biden, like just put his arm around him as a sign of affection. There was no leading him off. It's just false, 100% false and defamatory, just a lie. You got Fox. Then you have Sinclair, a billion-dollar conglomerate which owns lots of local media stations. They push this stuff too, the exact same stories over and over again. Hat tip to Aaron Ruper and Jude Legum, who have some great stories on this. And if you just take a look, and they've done the ones where you see all the videos and the local affiliates are all saying the same exact things. So you'll have like a Murdoch paper like the Wall Street Journal use like Kevin McCarthy as the source to attack President Biden's and say President Biden has cognitive issues because Donald Trump's having fictitious conversations with himself about Hannibal Lecter, right? That's what's happening. So they go after President Biden. And I've seen full President Biden speeches. We've seen the State of the Union. President Biden gives good speeches. Does he occasionally have a stutter? Sure, but he gives good speeches. But anyway, then you have all of the local affiliates pushing out these headlines over and over, identical headlines over and over again, and identical news pieces over and over again to lie to the American people over and over again, and they push that. You know, and that's, you know, and then if you look at like, okay, well, who's the author who's writing these? It's someone named Jackson Walker, who consistently reposts from libs of TikTok. So something like this: you can't scooter on the street anymore because Lime is going out of their way to protect the feelings of, I'm not even sure what it's even saying here. Lime enacts no-go zone around Pride Cross, just like anti-LGBTQ stuff. And that's the person who's writing these stories. And then Sinclair has all of their affiliates blasted out at a local level. So that's what we're dealing with. But I'll tell you why I have hope, great deal of hope, because I think you get it and you see the efforts. So when they do these headlines, you're calling it out. You're bringing it to our attention right away. And that's why I feel like more confident than ever, is because once we identify the plan, we could address it. We could fix it. Once we know the stunts and the scams, we look for it together, we call it out, and we know they're trying to play us. As I always say, this isn't a Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. We have lots of people on this channel who are conservative, liberal, progressive, independent. I just want the truth. Just give me the facts and stop lying to me. And the consistent stream of lies coming from billionaires to prop up Donald Trump, who has fake conversations in his mind about Hannibal Lecter and who calls the January 6th insurrectionists heroic hostages. I'm not okay with that. I know you're not also. Well, hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million together. Thanks for watching.
Enough! Send him to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.